The crystalline caves of Drakmor had stood untouched by human hands for 3,000 years. The dragons who dwelt within had made certain of that. They remembered the wars, the betrayals, the broken treaties written in blood and ash. Humanity was a plague to be avoided, not engaged. Mia didn't know any of this history when she stumbled into the northern cave entrance, tears frozen on her cheeks, her small body shaking from cold and exhaustion. The 7-year-old had been separated from her expedition team during a sudden blizzard. She had wandered for hours, calling out until her voice gave out before the mountain itself seemed to swallow her whole. The cave was warm. That was all that mattered to her child's mind. Warm meant safe. Warm meant not dying. She collapsed just inside the entrance, her red coat barely visible against the dark stone floor. She didn't see the massive golden eyes that watched her from the shadows. She didn't hear the low rumble that echoed through the cavern like distant thunder. Velkara, the keeper of the northern clutch, approached the tiny intruder with scales bristling. Her silver-white form moved with lethal grace, each step precise and purposeful. This was a human child, in her territory. Near her eggs, every instinct screamed at her to eliminate the threat. Humans grew quickly, became dangerous. This small one would become one of them, the ones who had slaughtered her ancestors for scales and hoarded gold. But the child didn't move, didn't threaten. She simply lay there, breathing shallow, skin turning blue at the fingertips. Velkara's nostrils flared. She smelled no weapons, no malice, only fear, exhaustion, and the strange sweetness that clung to all young things. The dragon tilted her massive head, confused. The child was dying. Why did that matter? She turned away, back toward her nesting chamber where 5 precious eggs rested in carefully arranged sand. She had duties, responsibilities. A human child was not her concern, but she paused at the entrance to her chamber. Behind her she heard a small sound, a whimper barely audible. The sound young things made when they were alone and afraid. Velkara's tail lashed in frustration. With a growl that shook dust from the ceiling, she returned to the child. She couldn't leave it here to die. That would make her no better than them. Using the tip of her tail with surprising delicacy, she dragged Mia deeper into the cave, away from the freezing winds. The child's eyes fluttered open briefly, seeing only blurred shapes and feeling movement. She was too weak to be afraid. Velkara brought her to the nesting chamber. Heat radiated from the sands, kept warm by geothermal vents below. She deposited Mia beside the eggs and stepped back, watching warily. The child's shivering slowed. Color returned to her face. After several minutes, Mia's eyes opened fully. She found herself staring at 5 enormous eggs, each nearly as large as she was, pulsing with an inner light. They were the most beautiful things she had ever seen. Pretty, she whispered, her voice hoarse. One egg rocked slightly, then another. Mia giggled, actually giggled, and reached out to touch the nearest one gently. "It's okay," she murmured. "I'm scared too." Velkara watched from across the chamber, astonished. The child showed no greed, no desire to harm. She spoke to the unhatched dragons as if they could understand, as if they were friends. Days passed. Velkara hunted and brought food, berries and mushrooms at first, uncertain what humans ate. Mia accepted everything with grateful thanks, always saying please and thank you in her small voice. She stayed near the eggs, talking to them constantly, telling them stories about her home, her brother Ken, who was probably looking for her, her dreams of exploring the stars. The eggs responded. They rocked more frequently when Mia was near. Their inner light grew brighter. Velkara realized the hatchlings inside were listening, learning, bonding. On the 5th day, the first egg cracked. A small bronze head emerged, eyes blinking in the light. The hatchling looked first at Velkara, then at Mia. It chirped and crawled directly to the child, curling up in her lap. Mia cried then, but with joy. She held the baby dragon as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "You're beautiful." Velkara felt something crack inside her too, something harder than any egg, older than stone. It was the wall she had built around her heart, the one that said all humans were enemies. This child had destroyed it without even trying. When Ken finally found the cave entrance a week later, leading a rescue team, they were prepared for the worst. They found instead something impossible. Mia sitting in a nest of silver sand surrounded by 5 baby dragons, while their mother watched with what could only be called affection. "Ken," Mia called out, waving. "Come meet my friends. This is Velkara, and these are her babies." The rescue team froze, weapons half drawn. Ken stepped forward slowly, hands raised. "Mia, are you okay?" "I'm wonderful." "Ken, dragons aren't what we thought. They're family. They're kind. They're—" She looked up at Velkara, who lowered her massive head to nuzzle the child gently. "They're friends." Ken met Velkara's eyes. In them he saw intelligence, caution, but also hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, old wounds could heal. "Thank you," he said simply, bowing his head. "Thank you for saving my sister." Velkara's rumble was softer this time. Not threatening, almost pleased. The story spread across human settlements like wildfire. The child who slept beside Dragon Young and lived. The dragon who chose mercy over ancient hatred. Slowly, cautiously, both species began to reach out again. Ambassadors were exchanged. Treaties were rewritten. And in the crystalline caves of Drakmor, Mia visited every year, watching 5 young dragons grow, teaching them that trust was not weakness, that forgiveness was not forgetting, and that sometimes the bravest thing anyone can do, human or dragon, is to give peace one more chance. The age of isolation was over. The age of understanding had begun, all because one lost child knew only to be kind, and one ancient dragon remembered what it meant to protect the innocent no matter their species.